Welcome to One on One with Mitch Lafon. Joining me on this episode, it is STYX bassist Ricky Phillips. We talk about the band's new DVD live at the Orleans Arena, their upcoming residency with Don Felder out in Vegas called Renegades in the Fast Lane, coming to you in January 2017. And then we look back at Ricky's career, talking about Bad English, Coverdale Page, Ronnie Montrose, and a lot more. Without further ado, here is the one, the only, multi-talented bassist extraordinaire, Ricky Phillips. We are speaking with bassist Ricky Phillips of the band STYX. Always a pleasure, Ricky. How are you?
Thanks, Mitch. Yeah, it's a pleasure for me, too. I'm doing great. We're doing good.
Yeah, and now I saw the band in Malone, New York in August, and, you just never fail to deliver a quality show. It's just hit after hit. It's just fun. It's fun. And
that's important, and I'm glad. Thank you for saying that, because we have a lot of people who will hold up the sign that says, this is my 60th. It might be maybe my 200th or whatever show, and because we have so many diehard fans out there that see these multiple shows, we try to change it up and go to the deep cuts, use different deep cuts. We try to keep track of what the set list was when we were last in your town, and so it's different the next time you come and see it. And we also pay great attention to detail on the original recordings, so that you're not disappointed in you wanting to hear this one note that Tommy Shaw hits or something, and then this is the way I sing it now, I hate that. We all hate that. So we're trying to really deliver what everyone knows is the STYX catalog, right down to arrangements. There are places in the set where, we can all kind of deviate and show our musicianship. So it's not a phoned-in performance every night, or you're not acting the same part. It does change from night to night, but we don't do it at the sake of the song, if that makes sense. We make sure the songs, the guitar solos and the keyboard parts that you've heard all your life, those remain intact, and then we have fun in different parts of the show.
In fact, you mentioned the set list, and that's one of my big bugaboos with bands that have been touring for 10, 15, 20 years. They come by, and sometimes you go, well, it's the same 15 songs I saw in 2004 and in 2008, and so it really makes a difference for you then you really make sure that, okay, we've done these ones, let's give them something different?
Yeah, and you make a good point. There's not much room to move so who are you playing for? Are you playing for the people who are coming back to see you again, or are you playing for all the new people that have shown up that night? It's a tough call, so we try. That's why our staff, actually, the stage manager, he makes note of what the set list was, and we keep a file of that. And so when we come back, we try to change it up. But it's tough. Any band that's got a lot of hits, everybody wants to hear those songs first, and then deviate from the pop palette afterwards. And so it depends also on the length of the show. Sometimes you're only on stage for 70, 75 minutes. Then sometimes you have the luxury of playing 2-hour sets, and that's when we can get a little personal and have a deeper conversation, as Tommy Shaw says. It's like, those are the fun shows. But, you make a really, really good point. It's apologies to those people who are coming back and hearing the same songs, but, you kind of can't overlook certain songs. You got to play them.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. There's like every band has those 5 or 10 that if they don't play, you go, what do you mean Kiss didn't do rock and roll all night tonight?
Right.
But there's also, like Metallica does, there's that spot in the set where there's, okay, these 2 songs are going to be floaters and we're going to move them along, and that's a great thing. So let's talk about what we're here for. First of all, STYX live at the Orleans Arena, Las Vegas on DVD, show from a couple of years back. Just talk to me a little bit about that show and capturing it on film, and what fans can expect if they go buy the DVD.
It's funny, just kind of off the cuff here. Whenever we do these big recordings of a show, it seems you walk off the stage going, man, why is it tonight? I don't feel like I nailed it. I don't really feel like I played my best. And I remember feeling that way when I came off of that stage that night. And so I just kind of, I didn't want to hammer everybody out. I didn't know how they felt, and it's kind of, you want to keep the spirit up. Then I heard it, and I went, oh my God, that sounds incredible. I really think that show is probably the best captured STYX set that I've heard in a while. As far as the band playing tight and people doing cool little riffs and lines and things, little deviations. But as an overall, and Gary Loiseau, God bless him, he passed away in January. He mixed that, and he's been with STYX since the 70s. An incredible guy, incredible ears, and just one of my best buddies. I'd play golf with him on days off, and I miss him greatly. But he did an amazing job mixing that show. And yeah, it's cool. It was a fun night, a great crowd. They were there they had their party hats on, man. They were ready to go. And it was a win-win all the way around. But it's funny, my initial point was that I think musicians are all pretty tough on themselves. And so maybe the 1% of that you didn't get really bothers you more than the 99% where you nailed it. I think there's this sensitive side to musicians that they want perfection, and so you'll obsess on one little tiny thing that no one else notices. For the sake of the rest of the performance.
And that's where Twitter and Facebook drives a lot of musicians crazy, because in the old days, you'd go play Arkansas in front of, 5,000 people, and only the people in that room knew it. Now you screw up, and the whole world is like, did you see what he did last night? And it's like, oh, my God.
Yeah, no, you got it.
So let's talk about the other thing that's coming up that's real exciting. It's this sort of residency or co-headline with Don Felder out in Vegas, the STYX and Don Felder Renegades in the Fast Lane. So it's the first couple of weeks of January. What are we going to see there? Are we, again, going back to setlist, will there be a lot of variation, or will it be a very Las Vegas show and this is what we're doing? What's that going to be like?
Yeah, we're discussing that because we don't want it to be just another show, right? So we're discussing that, and we've had a couple meetings so far about that, but there's some compliment that I wouldn't have picked. To be dead straight, I wouldn't have picked, but we've noticed it. There's certain bands you play with, and you find that the band it's bigger than just seeing each band on their own, but together the compliment. But the compliment of this Eagles material, especially that Don was a part of. Don wrote my two favorite Eagles songs are, of course, Hotel California and Victim of Love, and that's kind of, he's the rocker input in the writing to that band, and I'm sure Joe Walsh, who is a big favorite of mine as well, had something to do with that. But Don is whenever other bands come on the bill when we've done shows, all the guitar players are standing out there at the side of the stage to watch Don play, because he's got this thing that's all his. And it's just great, and he's got a killer band, and it's just going to be fun. It's whatever we end up doing with the set list. We'll probably, I think that was one of the things we've discussed, is making sure we compare set lists and find the right match. But it's a blast. It's just a good compliment. It's a good night of hearing songs you've heard before, but hearing them live and played so well.
Yeah. Now, let me go a little random in the questions here, and let's just follow along here. So you mentioned great players, and one of them, of course, was Ronnie Montrose. You had done some work with him, and you also had done some, I guess, demos or recording with him and Eric Singer. Talk to me about that, and just talk to me about Ronnie himself, because he was such a great musician, a guy, just an incredible influence. Let's go with that.
Yeah, sure. Ronnie is one of those guys that everybody who knew Ronnie would develop a relationship with Ronnie, and you would think you're Ronnie's best friend. And I always thought I was probably Ronnie's best friend. And when he died, and I went and Neil Sean, myself, and Steve Smith did the opening of the live celebration for Ronnie. We did some of Ronnie's material to open up the show, and as I was talking to everybody, I realized everybody thought they were Ronnie's best friend. he's like one of these guys. He gives 100% of himself. He always gave everything he had, and good, bad, or ugly. He was honest, and he was a crazy, wacky, talented motherfucker, man. He was just amazing, and a dear, dear friend. Miss him greatly, and it's his guitar playing. I think people forget, but other guitar players will tell you that stock rock guitar riff number 327 through 500 came from Ronnie Montrose. There's a palette that he presented. Nobody played those exact riffs that sort of become part of the arsenal from a lot of players today. And he just the song Frankenstein, for example. Ronnie told me that was a song that morphed its way. There were bits and pieces. That's why they called it Frankenstein. There were bits and pieces that they took in the Edgar Winter Group that either Dan Hartman would come up with, or Ronnie would come up with, or Edgar would come up with, and it began to build and build and build. And he said it changed, but it did. And when they recorded it, that didn't stop the changing. It kept changing. They kept adding to it. That was just an ongoing thing. If you went to see the Edgar Winter Group play that, after it had already been recorded, there were little deviations or changes, not so much in the arrangement, but maybe within the arrangement there would be little parts that were added to it. And Ronnie just had that kind of clever. I love the Edgar Winter Group. That was a great place. I don't know if also people know that Ronnie worked with Van Morrison. Ronnie told me another great story when he was working with Van the very first time. He was playing. He was trying to hear his guitar and futzing with his amp and getting proper sounds. And he started playing this riff, and Van said, "Ronnie, that's it right there." And he said, "What's it?" That's the riff for our song. He goes, "What song?" He said, "The one we're about to write." And it was Wild Nights. I mean, Ronnie was just kind of playing that riff, and that became a big song for Van. And that, who else? Ronnie worked with so many people over his, tenure on this planet, and I think.
Well, when you're great, people want to work with you. I mean, that's as simple as it gets, right?
Yeah, that's kind of it. And he produced people behind the scenes. Tesla, for example. Ronnie's a Northern California guy. He ended up in Northern California. That's really where he had most of his success. So there's this little band called Tesla, and he does.
Not a little band. They're a great freaking band.
Well, I mean, at the time.
Yeah, right.
He went in and he picked up. I wish I could think of the name of the song and do a Google search we could find it. But he found a cover for them, which became their first hit.
Oh, Little Susie, which was a song by
Little
PhD. The band PhD did that, and then they covered it. And a lot of people don't know that it's a cover. So
yeah, but Ronnie was clever like that. He had just great ideas, man. Just great ideas that would seem to come just out of thin air at the moment on the fly. And it was a blast playing with him, a blast hanging with him. He's just a great guy.
Yeah. Now, I know I don't have an hour with you, so I'm going to just randomly go here again. I was speaking to one of your former bandmates this week via email. We were talking, and I said I was going to interview you. And first of all, he said, give him my best, buddy. And then he said, Ricky will always be one of my favorite bassists. He taught me how to play the big pocket. And that comes from Deen Castronovo in Bad English that you were with him. So that was nice of him to say that. But
yeah.
First of all, just talk to me about the big pocket and what that meant, and how did you convey that to our dear friend Deen?
Well, in Deen's case, there's nothing he can't do. He can do anything, technically, but he's if people who don't know Deen, he's like a poodle, man. He's like, he's just on 10 all the time. And so I kind of grew up on British rock, starting with the Beatles, but going through like Cream, and I have to throw Jimi Hendrix in there, who's not British, but Zeppelin, Humble Pie, Free. There's a lot of the backbeat is the most important thing to English musicians of that time anyway. And when I figured that out, and how to do that. When I joined the Babies, that was, a British band that came over, and Jonathan Cain and I joined that band in '78, and I got a master class in backbeat when I joined that band. I'd already been into it, and then got to understand it just by playing with Tony Brock. It was a way to make a song bigger than it really is just by playing that fractional second behind the kick drum instead of ahead of it. It makes it 5 times as fat. And that's what I try to teach Deen. It's okay to be aggressive and be excited when you're playing. But as you're doing that, with that excitement, lay that kick drum on the backside, lay the snare drum even on the backside just fractionally, and it will make the groove twice as wide, 5 times as wide, whatever the case, depending on the tempo of the song. And that's what all Deen needed to learn was that. And all of a sudden, boom, he sounded amazing. And that's what, with John Waite's singing, that's what he needs to have. He does not like edgy, push forward drumming or any instrumentation forcing him kind of to sing out of the groove. He's a blues singer, man. He's a British rock singer, and on the back side is where that kind of presentation lives.
Yeah, so let's talk about the band, though. Bad English. I mean, that first album that came out in '89, massive. When I See You Smile, massive. Talk to me about, first of all, how you got into the band. Why did they pick you? Because in a sense, it was a super group, and your name was fresh on the scene. And then what happened after Backlash? Why couldn't the momentum keep going?
Well, we'd all been friends for, 10 years at that point, I guess. Bad English was really half the Babies and half Journey. So what ended up happening was Jonathan and John and I. Actually, I'll tell you from the very beginning. Jonathan came. We were both at his brother's wedding, Muggsy. And after Muggsy's wedding, we all went to this winery, and Jonathan pulled me aside. He said, "Look, we're going to let it be known to the press that Journey is no more this next week, and I want to be ready with something, and I want to kind of put a rough and tumble rock and roll band together like we had in the Babies. Are you in?" And it sounded good to me, and Jonathan and I loved working together. And he was producing Michael Bolton's Dock of the Bay album. And so he had to go off and do some stuff in New York. And I was supposed to be kind of just making phone calls, going and listening to guitar players and singers. And there's a couple of guys we were really strong on at the time. And he called me from New York and said, "You're not going to believe this, but I had dinner with Bingo last night, and I think we should all 3 get together." Bingo was our nickname for John Waite. And he said, "Let's go to my studio in San Francisco. Let's write and see if we still have the magic." And that's what we did. And within 2 days, we had the beginnings of what we knew was a very strong record. John had already had interest at Epic, and Epic just jumped on board with that and basically signed us. But Neil had been coming over, Neil Sean had been coming over and putting down some solos for us. Yeah, but it was his first chance to do his own thing. He'd been in Journey for a long time and Santana before that. So this was his first taste of freedom, and he really didn't want to commit to a band. And right when we were going to sign another guitar player, all of a sudden Neil burst in the door in rehearsal one day and let his presence be known. And we knew he was the magic fit anyway. And there you go. And then we started auditioning drummers. And when Deen came in, Neil actually pulled me aside and said, "I know this drummer. He's from Oregon."
Right. They were in Hardline together.
Yeah. Well, no, Hardline was after Bad English. So.
Oh, that's right. It was '92. That's right.
Deen had been in a band called Wild Dogs.
Yes.
And it was a very progressive 3-piece with him being the lead singer. And everybody knows what an insane singer Deen is, as well as his drummer. He's a beautiful voice. But we didn't know that in Bad English. We had no idea. We were just trying to get find a drummer. And he came in, and he was a little edgy. He was a little on top of the beat. And we sent him home. And we auditioned another 20 drummers from around the country. And then Neil and I went to John Waite and said, "Look, let's get that kid back from Oregon. He's got the shit. Let's just," I said, "Give me like 20 minutes with him. He's got so much talent. let me just, and so John said, okay, let's do it. So we brought him down, worked with him we just said, okay, just lay it on the backside, keep it deep and big, brother. And he did that. And, that English was born, man. That was the beginning of all of us who have always been the original members of that band.
Yeah, and we're looking. What is it now? 26 years later, I guess, or 27 years later.
Amazing.
Yeah, and with everybody still out there and still doing it, it wouldn't hurt maybe, or from a fan's perspective, to see a few shows, or even just go do like 10 shows and say goodbye properly, or whatever you want to call it. It's just it's a shame that you just don't do something again,
I think it would be too. I'll go along. I'll go as far as to agree with you. It was an amazing band. Things that happened quickly and easily for that band. We wrote songs quickly. We got songs recorded quickly. It was just easy to do. It was a great combination of guys doing something that. We're trying to do a little something different. It became a little bit 80s-y because you had to get airplay at that particular time, specifically in the late 80s to early 90s. If you want to get on the radio, man, there's a little, mold you had to fit. And,
yeah, absolutely.
But we tried to do, there's some songs that we didn't put on the record that, man, they were so progressive and cool.
Yeah. But the possibilities of what you could do in 2017 without those constraints, without AOR, without the guy,
absolutely,
it would be killer. I know we had 20 minutes, which is why I'm sort of rushing it here, but I would be remiss if we didn't mention Coverdale Page. What was that like for you? Because first of all, it's Jimmy Page, and second of all, it's Jimmy Page, right? So,
and third of all, it's Jimmy Page.
Right,
yeah,
exactly. So
I know, and I love David, and it was really David. Who
and David's great. Let's not
contacted me and wanted to know if I would. The way he presented it to me, I was never really supposed to be the bass player. I came along to help them play bass and help construct songs that they were writing for the project, and he wanted a guy who had production chops and whatever the chops that he felt I had to come in and help in that process. I said absolutely, and I've always wanted to work with Denny Carmassi. I've been a friend of mine for years. And speaking of Montrose, the drummer for Montrose, just an amazing drummer. And when they told me he was involved, I was even more excited. But the very first day, when I think Denny and I were just having soba noodles in Reno somewhere, and we realized in about half an hour we were going to go in and meet Jimmy Page for the first time, and we thought, oh my gosh, this we kind of both pushed our soba noodles away. I couldn't eat anymore, and we ended up being driven over to a place where was set up for us to start working. And Jimmy came in the room. Neither one of us knew what to expect. And with a big smile on Jimmy's face, he just had his hand extended forward, just came straight over to us and said, "I'm so happy you guys said yes. Thanks for being here and helping us out." Blah blah blah. As we worked on the music for about 5 months, we really developed this thing that was pretty special. And I wish we would have actually recorded that record more a little bit looser, more of Zeppelin style. It became sort of a big production, and it's a great record. Sounds
again,
good.
That's radio and AOR, and you have to have a single, and it has to be polished. And
there you go. You said it. So, and that's what ended up happening. But I loved. There are some of us rehearsing. We at one point moved into this huge room, kind of like a small arena little place. It was basically the second floor of an office building. It was just all open, and we would play those songs, and it was recorded as we were listening to see if arrangements were working. And gosh, man, it's freaking oodles of magic in those recordings. And it was just a great time. I got to ask Jimmy a zillion questions as a kid. I always wanted to know about, Clapton and Beck and Jimmy being coming from the same band, and how did that happen, and who was there with who, and what was going on. And Jimmy and I were the only ones that really went out at night. We like to go out and have a couple beverages and look at pretty girls, and we'd go to clubs, and on the way there, Beverly Bush, this boxer, English boxer, who was Jimmy's valet really at that time, would drive us, and I would ask him all these crazy questions I'd always wanted to know, and we just had a blast. It was a good hang, good, hard-working, good time, and yeah, it was fun. Really enjoyed it.
That was great. Now I know we've run out of time, but I'll just finish on this.
Sure.
Deen Castronovo said that he learned the big pocket from you. So what do you learn, if anything, from both David Coverdale and Jimmy Page? Because, Whitesnake and Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin, huge, massive influences. Those two guys must have brought something where you probably don't just plug in and play. You must study them and say, okay, look how he's moving his fingers, right? What did you learn from those guys?
Mitch, I think it solidified more than I think I'd already learned, because I, with a fine-tooth comb gone over both those guys' catalog and gleaned everything I could. It had already become part of my DNA as a player. Zeppelin was huge in my DNA. The arrangements, the things that are just, wait a minute, that's how the Beatles songs are, A part to B part to C part, back to B part, and going out on a chord, And it's like this, there were no rules, and every rule that there might have been had been broken in the Zeppelin stuff. And I loved that, and Jimmy solidified that. There was one song, I was doing a lot of the technical part of when we were putting some of that stuff together. And I remember creating a tempo track to one piece of music on that record. I'm forgetting the title of it right now, but I think it changed tempos 4 different times during the song. Now you never did that, and from where I was taught, you had a click track and you stayed and you did not deviate from that click track. You stayed there. But Jimmy, in his genius, man, he knows this isn't the tempo that this part needs to breathe. We got to slow this down, and then bam, kick back in and bring the numbers up about 3 on this next section. And I was absolutely blown away how right he was. And you don't feel that as being wrong when you listen to the track. It's just so amazing how he would think. He did not think like any other musician that I'd ever worked with. And things that were important to him were how it felt, how it sounded, tones, things, the way tones went together with one another, things that are so much apart I didn't realize. That drives me crazy, but I must have gotten that from listening to Zeppelin records. It drives me crazy when tones don't match and things like that.
But, that's what
and
was
David,
great about it.
I've kind of left David out. David, by the way, I had no idea how gifted David is as a songwriter and as little things detail like that. I think something about the British thing, they get some stuff that I think a lot of American musicians kind of overlook. And it comes out in an overall sound, not just the feel, but the tones and the sounds of the separate instruments too.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that's what was great about the 70s, whether it was Kiss or whether it was Deep Purple. They put on the record what sounded right, not what was technically right or what you would find in a musician's book or whatever. Now we seem to spend so much time fixing that, Pro Tooling this and that we've just taken out sort of the soul.
Squeeze out all the love. Squeeze all the love out of it, man. Yeah, I know.
Which is a shame. And, of course, new STYX music, yes or no? Because I know we're way over time here.
I will say I hope so. And and one thing I will say is people ask me this all the time. We're always writing. That's what we do, man. It's just because it's not really a lucrative business anymore. It doesn't mean we still don't write. It still doesn't mean we still don't produce and record stuff. But what we're going to have to do one of these days, and I know we're already booked into next year, but we got to pull the bus over. And we haven't had that dialogue within the band. I just know that we've got to pull the bus over in order for us. And one of the things, and maybe I've even said this to you before, but we have a crew that we do not want to lose. And as soon as we do leave the road, we take the chance of losing some guys they've got to feed their families, and 2 other bands, because we've got a crackerjack crew, and there's other bands just salivating, waiting for us to take a break so they can steal our guys. I'm partly kidding, but I mean It's the
No,
truth.
but that's
These
how
guys
it works.
got it.
They have to commit to a tour, and I know one band right now. The crew guys have to commit through October 2017, and that's just the way it is. So if it's one of the guys on the STYX thing, and then he has to go to the tour, you now lose him for the next 11 months, and it's just the way it is.
But we still, I don't want to take away from your question. I mean, we do. I do really hope we get in and really, really do pull the bus over long enough to spit something out, because it'll be good, and we won't spit anything out. It'll be good. It'll be done right.
Well, of course, you've got Tommy Shaw and Lawrence Gowan, and I mean, how can you go wrong?
There you go.
But for me,
Absolutely.
I need you to spit out a new STYX album, a new Bad English album, and a new Coverdale Page album. So you're going to be very, very busy in the next.
Okay, I love it. I love the challenge of that. All right, thanks, Mitch.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Cheers.
Bye-bye. And there you have it, folks. My interview with Ricky Phillips of the band STYX. Great stories about Coverdale Page, Bad English, and more. Please do me a favor. Check me out on Twitter at Mitch Lafon, MITCHLAFON. One-on-one Mitch Lafon on Facebook, and paypal.me, Mitch Lafon, if you care to support the podcast. And with that, bye for now. Oh my.